Someone is murdering the members of an astronomy society. Is it the work of a serial killer? Barnaby and Jones will need some help from the stars to crack this one. We're talking bad science.
The history of astronomy. No, astrology. Well, astronomy and astrology.
And can Jones pull off a t shirt and jacket combo in this episode of
Welcome to Midsummer.
Hello and welcome to Midsummer, the podcast where we dissect all the mysteries, the murders, and the many weird things about the long running hit TV show, Midsummer Murders. I'm your host, Eric Buscher, and with me as always is my co host, Eileen Becker. Hey, Eileen.
Hey, Eric, we're talking Written in the Stars, the third episode of the 15th series. It originally aired September 25th, 2012. It was directed by Rennie Rye and written by Steve Trafford. Let's focus those telescopes.
Spoiler warning, we will be discussing the events of this episode, including the identity of the murderer. So if you haven't watched it yet and don't want to know who done it, pause this and go watch it. We will still be here when you get back.
The other lady is Margaret Dormer, known locally as Mystic Mags, does reading, star chart stuff.
The rock cracked his head open like a coconut. Feel the weight.
That Mystic Mag says it's a meteorite. Who's gonna believe that?
It's the day of a solar eclipse, and a lot of people in Midsummer Stanton are at Moonstone Ridge to witness it. Local astrologer Mags Dormer is trying to sell her star charts. University professor Adrian Sharp shows some kids how to properly look at the eclipse. Local historian, amateur astronomer, and head of the parish council Jeremy Harper gives an interview to journalist Tanya Walker about the Astrodome, a small observatory built on the ridge in the 30s. Sounds exciting, but he promises her a much bigger story later on. Jeremy is then accosted by Lawrence Johnson, the head of Stanton Observatory at the nearby University of Midsomer. Lawrence is unhappy with Jeremy over a letter and says he crossed a line. But Jeremy is unfazed and Lawrence storms off. Jeremy's wife Katrina asks if he is okay, but he rebuffs her coldly before talking to fellow amateur astronomer Peter Groves. Groves is concerned Lawrence knows what they are doing, but Jeremy reassures him. He then calls over university astronomy student Gagan Dutta and walks off with her while her father Harry watches unhappily. When the solar eclipse happens, a scream is heard and Mags finds Jeremy dead. The police arrive and coroner Kate Wilding tells Tom Barnaby that Jeremy was killed by a blow to the head by a meteorite. She's also found red fibers on the meteorite, possibly from gloves. Moonstone Ridge is rumored to be cursed, with weird stories of people going missing and being found on the ridge acting strangely, as well as stories of extraterrestrials with moon faces. Barnaby and Jones go to the Moonstone Ridge tea rooms to talk to Katrina. She and Jeremy ran the tea rooms and the adjacent museum of Bronze Age artifacts found on the ridge. She also works as a part time secretary for Lawrence, because apparently a tea room and museum doesn't make a lot of money. She mentions Tom Stanton, a rich landowner who owned both the ridge and constructed the Astrodome on it. When he died, he left the ridge, the dome, and the land the observatory is on to the parish. Katrina's sister Mary was found dead on the ridge 15 years previously. Now, over at the observatory, Gagan throws some Goodwill Hunting level math up on a board to show Lawrence the subject of her thesis, why Lawrence was wrong about the uncertainty principle in his book that got him his job. As you might expect, Lawrence is less than thrilled and complains to Professor Adrian that this is not the time for her to undermine his work. The observatory is in a funding crisis, and its major donor might not renew their £2 million grant for it. The detectives come to talk to Lawrence and Adrian and learn that Jeremy was hostile to the university's plans to tear down the Astrodome and build a new observatory on the ridge. Meanwhile, at the local paper, the Midsummer Mercury, the editor demands Tanya find a way to get more info about the murderer, threatening her job. Mags, who is the horoscope writer, conspires with her to create a new angle. Mags says she predicted Jeremy's death in his star chart, a move that her husband George is against because it could dig up their secrets from the past. When the detectives ask to see this chart, she refuses to show it to him. The detectives start looking into Mary's death as well. Turns out she was Harry's wife and that she was at a party at Mags and George's house the night she died. Katrina is upset with Mags for the story about Jeremy and tells the detectives that they had marriage troubles. He had uncovered the university's expansion plans and secret funding negotiations when he was snooping on her laptop, most likely looking for evidence of an affair between her and Lawrence, ew, which sadly is true. Gross. Harry never remarried after Mary's death and believes the Astronomy Society members somehow murdered her. Later that evening, George witnesses Harry and Katrina talking in a car on the ridge. Harry tells her he loves her, but she says she only has room for jerks in her heart, not creepy dads. Revealing the affair to him, he urges her to tell the police the truth. That night, someone wearing a moon mask and red gloves breaks into the museum and steals the moonstone disc and a spearhead, two relics found on the ridge. The next day, Harry accidentally finds condoms in Gagan's bag and watches her drive off with Peter. He confronts Peter and warns him to stay away or else, but Peter is just giving her a ride to the university where Lawrence dismisses her thesis. Adrian doesn't really defend her, saying they need to hold off on challenging him until the negotiations are over. The detectives look at Jeremy's laptop and find lots of encrypted astronomy data. Kate lets them know the red fibers found at the murder and the robbery match, and that there were some weird results in Mary's pathology report showing the body had been moved post-mortem, and it's inconclusive if she died from an accident or murder. Katrina and Gagan accidentally let some information slip to Tanya, who then calls Lawrence about the observatory losing funding. She invites him over to her place for an interview where he ends up threatening her. Luckily, she had asked Peter to be there to help her, so Lawrence storms off. The detectives realize that the data on Jeremy's laptop comes from Gagan, so they ask her where she was during the robbery. Aiden gives her an alibi, saying they were on night duty at the observatory. Later on, Lawrence tells Adrian that he wants Gagan silenced over the leaked data. And when Peter arrives home in the dark, the moon mask person throws a spear into his chest, killing him. Alright, tourist info. This is our first and only time in Midsomer Stanton, home to the University of Midsomer, known for its prestigious courses in astronomy and javelin throwing. Do some sky watching at Moonstone Ridge, stop off at the nearby tea rooms, and be sure to pick up the local paper for some of the sexiest horoscopes you will ever read.
Standing in for the Stanton Observatory at the University of Midsomer was the UCL Observatory at University College London. It opened in 1929 as the University of London Observatory. There are several telescopes at the observatory, which was once way outside of London, but is now next to the A1, the main highway. It's mainly a teaching observatory, though a supernova was found in 2014 by astronomer Steve Fossey during a session with 4 undergraduate students. This is the only time we ever hear about a university in Midsomer.
No, that's not true. They had the one they just had the one where it was the mound and they go to the university, like, they go to Oxford, remember?
Yeah, that's Oxford. That's not Midsomer, University of Midsomer.
You know, maybe Midsummer, maybe that's the problem is Midsummer University offers no graduate courses in murder.
You'd think they'd have a really, really good forensics
Or criminology.
criminology courses, yeah.
All right, so we have a couple of strange kills in this episode, but like number one, we're going to talk about Peter's spear to the chest. So Peter is murdered with a spear thrown directly into his heart, which means this killer has perfect aim with a thrown spear.
Yes.
Which seemed a little implausible.
A little bit.
You know, I could have seen it. Like, also, I just love that he threw it at him. He could have just run up on him with it too.
Yeah. There's a, and we'll get to it more in part 2, but there's a real issue with the way the murders are committed in this, in
Yeah.
that there is no one really capable of doing these murders.
I mean, if they hired maybe a ninja, but
Yeah.
well, I mean, the thing is like he could have like run up and like they also the detectives kind of knew he threw the spear, and I
Mhm.
cannot imagine that there's a test or way for
Mhm.
them to know whether the spear was thrown or shoved into the guy with that level of force.
Yeah.
Peter also asked who's there, which,
Mhm.
kiss of death.
Yeah.
And I kind of love that he died under the moon, but also then his body was found by the milkman. And I saw the milkman delivering the milk, and I'm like, who gets their milk delivered anymore?
Yeah. Yeah. I do have an issue, well, a lot of issues with the first murder too, but a little shot of the moonstone maybe in the observatory and like a display would have been nice, because it comes out of nowhere, like, oh, there's this meteorite that just appears. Like, who's carrying that around? It's rather heavy.
they didn't say they stole it from the observatory. They just for all we
Yeah.
know too is they just picked up a big rock that happened to be a meteorite. They
Yeah.
don't really explain it, but also it was
Mhm.
like it's pretty much the only murder that seems plausible. He went up and hit him in the head with a rock,
Yeah. With a lot of people watching.
but you couldn't see anything because it was apparently night, which is how I remember all possible like how dark it gets during all solar eclipses. It's basically night.
It's not pitch black.
No,
It's
it's not.
twilight.
I know. This episode is, I would say, very imperfect.
Oh yeah.
It has lots of interesting stuff, but there is a lot of bits. There's a lot of bits that kind of just derail this episode for me. There's a lot of this stuff with the horoscope we'll talk later on, which just
Mhm.
grinds this episode to a screeching halt. What did you think?
Yeah, we'll talk about that in the second half, but I agree that they focused on the wrong things. They forgot that they were doing a murder mystery on this one.
Yes, very much.
Yeah.
Um, that intro, right? The first 5 minutes, it's
Mhm.
so stuffed.
It is. I love that. That's the part I really love about it is that it's everything is there. You see everybody. You've got all the suspects in one spot. Anybody could have committed the murder if it, didn't quite work. Yeah.
I love the
Yeah.
setup, but I just felt like, oh, you've got
Mhm.
a secret. We've also got a secret. Do they know about
Mhm.
our secret? What about this
Yeah.
secret? It was like so on top of each other. I was like,
Yeah.
give this a little breathing room, right?
Yeah.
Like just the tiniest bit of breathing room. So it just doesn't feel like such a weird pile on in like the first 5 minutes.
No, I can see that. I just like the fact that they everything they had was kind of like we met all the
Yeah.
suspects within the first 5 minutes.
Oh yeah, and I do love the setup that the murder
Mhm.
is like it's basically a version of a locked room mystery, right? It's like
Mhm.
that first murder, it's everyone's there, but it was pitch black, so anybody could have done it.
Yeah. Except it's not really pitch black.
I know, I know.
Yeah.
The one thing I did like about this episode, there was a lot of really nice camera work, especially when they
Mhm.
were shooting things in the observatory.
Mhm.
Like really good overhead. I was like overhead shots like that tend to be very blah.
Mhm.
But as I was watching how they shot it, and I think Rennie, it reminded me a little bit of some of the like North by Northwest when they are doing
Mhm.
some overhead shots towards the end of that.
Yeah, in that
Um,
house, yeah.
yep,
Yeah.
that's and it worked really well.
Yeah.
Good cinematography.
Yeah, that is one thing that I can almost never fault in this series is the cinematography.
Yep. Did you catch that the intro music was different?
Yeah.
I remember when they started doing this. I think when Dudgeons joined up, they tried to shake up the intro music a little bit,
Mhm.
and in this they took out the theremin, the classic Midsummer theremin, and they replaced it
Yeah.
with a cello.
Yeah.
Does not work.
No. They need to bring back the little girl from Severance to do the theremin music again.
Yeah, the theremin is what makes that theme music
Yeah.
work.
Yeah.
Um, so Uh, so we talked a little bit about Jeremy's murder. As Kate said, a rock cracked his head like a coconut.
Yep.
We point out that it's a possible meteorite because of the magnet, and I liked the magnet bit where she sort of stuck the end to the
Yeah.
rock.
Yeah.
Um,
A little bit of science there. Good.
yeah, they had a lot of science, a lot of iffy science.
A lot of iffy science, yeah.
And then again, in one of the many bad jokes in this episode, so many bad jokes.
It was like dad joke hell.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Was it Jones or Barnaby who said he could have been moonstruck if the rock was from the moon, which is like not only a bad joke, then they go on to explain the joke.
That was Jones who said that. They gave Jones a lot of the bad jokes in this one.
Ugh, poor Jones.
Yeah.
Um, so obviously this was centered around a solar eclipse, the beginning of the solar eclipse, which was not a real eclipse,
Nope. Not in
but
the UK.
no, I'm not sure where. I think a lot of that was like they did some clever stock photography or something, but
Yeah.
Uh, if you guys want some eclipse facts, Eileen's about to go crazy on it
Go
for you.
crazy on you.
Yep.
All right. Well, the last solar eclipse in the UK was in 1999, and it was in Cornwall and parts in that area. The oldest documented eclipse was in 3340, which was recorded with spiral petroglyphs at the Lough Cairn megalithic monument in Ireland. Um, and eclipses were mentioned by Homer in the Iliad and in the writings of Confucius. Now, some biblical scholars have attributed the November 24th, 29 CE solar eclipse with the darkness at the time of Jesus' crucifixion, but it was only 80% totality in Jerusalem, which would not have made it all that dark. And it was also the wrong time of year. They were doing a Passover Seder, and that's in spring, so November would have been out. A total eclipse in 569 is mentioned in the Quran and preceded the birth of Muhammad. The first eclipse in the British Isles with written records occurred May 1st, 664, and it was widely visible in the British Isles with a totality that lasted for 2 minutes. Astronomer and mathematician Edmund Halley predicted the May 3rd, 1715 total eclipse over London with an accuracy of 4 minutes. Now, the first successful photograph of a total solar eclipse was taken on July 28th, 1851, by Johann Julius Friedrich Berkowski at the Royal Observatory in Königsberg, Prussia. And many scientific discoveries have been made during total solar eclipses, including new comets, the element helium, and proof of the general theory of relativity. Historically, eclipses have been associated with negative events, and many mythologies explain them with various animals devouring the sun. I'm sure we've all heard a lot of those. But one of, I think, a really interesting fact is that in 430 BCE, the Greek historian Herodotus described how a war between the Medes and the Lydians was ended when a total solar eclipse occurred during a battle, which freaked everybody else. And then they said, we better sit down and make peace before the world ends.
Mm-hmm.
But for me, the most unbelievable part of the total eclipse in this episode is that no one was playing either Dark Side of the Moon or Total Eclipse of the Heart, which, if you've ever been to an eclipse party, that's just standard fare.
I'm not sure why you find that so unbelievable in a show that has never paid music rights on anything.
That is true.
I've never heard one. So, like the closest I heard was like that one. There was one episode we saw where the guy's listening to some indistinct song in his truck, and I'm pretty sure they just like had some guy make something up. Larry, go noodle on the electric guitar for a little while. So I looked it up, and around the time when they would have been filming this episode, there were eclipses in Europe and
Mhm.
in some parts of the UK, but it was not like anywhere near where Midsummer was, like the London area.
Yeah.
So my guess is they might have just either used stock footage or sent somebody, because I don't really think we see them on, like, maybe for a second, and I think they probably processed this shot. I don't really think we
Mhm.
see them, everyone standing on a ridge looking directly at a solar eclipse. It's usually just like it's just edited together.
Yeah.
So another part of this episode they keep coming back to is the uncertainty principle. I looked this up because I am not a math major. Um, it is also known as Heisenberg's indeterminacy principle. Now, it is a fundamental concept in quantum mechanics. Now, what it says is it states that it's impossible to simultaneously know both the exact position and momentum or speed of a particle with absolute certainty. In essence, the more accurately you know one, or the more in essence, the more accurately you know one of these things, the less accurately you know the other. Which isn't really what they kept saying it was in the
Yeah.
episode. What it seemed to be in the episode was a thing called the observer effect, which is again more quantum mechanics, that states that the very act of observing a quantum system, such as a particle, can alter its properties and behavior.
Mhm.
Which in essence becomes, in this episode, how you look at things affects what you believe you see, or how reality is how you look at things affects what you see.
Yeah.
Which, they equate to the first law of criminal investigation, which is true. It's just not the uncertainty principle at all. So were they just humoring him? Yeah, tell the detective whatever he needs to hear.
Yeah.
So again, so much of this is about this whole episode is about astronomy and astrology, and they're joining at the hip. So, Eileen, why don't you untangle all of this history for us in your history corner?
Oh, it never gets completely untangled.
Okay, then let's just cut this section and keep going.
Astronomy and astrology developed together tens of thousands of years ago. In their most rudimentary forms, they evolved as hunter gatherers, and then the earliest farmers relied on the movement of the stars and the planets to plan out the year. They developed ways of tracking solstices and equinoxes, important events in the yearly cycles. Farmers had to know when to plant and when to harvest certain crops. The construction of large megalithic calendars, such as Warrenfield and Aberdeenshire, Scotland, date to around 8000 BCE, while structures such as Stonehenge were begun around 3000 BCE. Smaller items have been found depicting the stars, the oldest being the Nebra sky disk, found near Nebra, Germany in 1999. A bronze disc with a blue-green patina, it is dated to around 1800 to 1600 BCE and depicts in gold a solar or lunar disk, a lunar crescent, and 7 stars that may represent the Pleiades. 2 bands, one now missing, may have marked the solstices, while another arc could represent a solar boat, a rainbow, a comet, or the aurora borealis. If you look it up online, it looks an awful lot like the moonstone disk from this episode. Babylonian star catalogs date from around 1200 BCE, but the knowledge comes from the Sumerians around 350 to 3000 BCE. Astrotheology, which assigned important roles to the planetary gods of ancient Mesopotamia, also developed around this time. They also used a sexagesimal system, which involved a base of 60, to simplify the task of writing numbers, which is why we still divide a circle into 360 degrees and an hour into 60 minutes. The earliest known astronomer was a high priestess and daughter of Sargon the Great of the Akkadian Empire, which conquered all the Sumerian city-states. Enheduanna had the moon trapped in her chambers and wrote poems about her divine moon. Astronomy was also used in the ancient Indus Valley civilization of India, ancient China, ancient Egypt, and in Mesoamerica. Tracking the sun, moon, planets, and stars was vitally important and helped in the development of mathematics. The ancient Greeks created a highly developed astronomical system of Earth-centric spheres and eventually recognized that the Earth rotated on its axis. While early astronomy was concerned about predicting the movements of celestial objects for practical purposes, eventually it developed into the practice of divination. Around the 6th century BCE, horoscopic astrology developed, which assigned meaning to specific moments in time based on the alignment of the planets. Natal astrology charts the exact date, time, and place of a person's birth to shed light on a person's personality or path in life. It can be found in Indian, Chinese, Hellenistic, and Western astrological traditions. This is the astrology that deals with zodiac signs and houses, and much of this tradition is influenced by Mesopotamian beliefs, as they conquered parts of Asia, northern Africa, and southern Europe, spreading their belief systems. The conquest of Egypt by Alexander the Great fused the Babylonian astrology of Mesopotamia with the ancient Egyptian astrology. Chinese astrology is closely aligned with Chinese philosophy and gave rise to the 60-year cycle that was used to measure time. This tradition spread to Japan, Korea, and Vietnam. The ancient astronomical traditions greatly influenced the Arabic world and gave rise to the first astronomical observatories in the Muslim world by the 9th century. Astronomers used the known Arabic constellations to locate the Andromeda Galaxy and the Large Magellanic Cloud, as well as recording a supernova in 1006. The Muslim scholars also collected and preserved the writings of ancient mathematicians and natural philosophers such as Aristotle. While Europe lagged behind the Muslim world, they did find practical uses for texts such as On the Reckoning of Time by a 7th century English monk called Bede of Jarrow, aka the Venerable Bede. This book allowed churchmen to calculate the proper date of Easter and was even used after the rise of universities in the 12th century. The Copernican revolution really got astronomy going during the Renaissance, when Polish astronomer Nicholas Copernicus proposed the heliocentric system, in which the Earth and the other planets revolved around the Sun. This was not popular with the Church, naturally, as it took humans away from the center of the universe, and his On the Revolutions of the Heavenly Spheres, which actually has a Latin name that I can't pronounce, was published in 1543, just before the astronomer's death. The theory was picked up by Galileo Galilei, Johannes Kepler, and Isaac Newton. Celestial observation was greatly aided by the development of the telescope in 1608 in the Netherlands. The invention by eyeglass maker Hans Lippershey soon spread throughout Europe and was improved upon by Galileo, Kepler, and Christian Huygens. Isaac Newton is credited with inventing the first reflecting telescope. Since then, telescopes have gotten larger and more sophisticated. Radio telescopes were developed after the 1932 discovery of radio waves. Telescopes were developed to detect infrared, ultraviolet, X-ray, and gamma ray radiation. Observatories popped up around the world and grew larger. The first space telescopes were launched into low Earth orbit in 1962. The Hubble Space Telescope, much larger than previous orbiting telescopes, was launched into low Earth orbit in 1990 and is still in use today. The James Webb Space Telescope launched in 2021, using infrared light to see farther than any human has ever seen. From the Middle Ages into the Renaissance, astrology continued to be practiced in India, the Muslim world, and in Europe, though the predictive aspects of astrology were often in conflict with the teachings of Christianity, and even Martin Luther denounced it. However, the Magi, mentioned in the Gospel of Matthew as bringing gifts to the infant Jesus, are sometimes portrayed as astrologers from the East. The word Magi even comes from the priestly caste of Zoroastrianism, who are renowned astrologers. Astrology was very popular during the Renaissance, with astrologers such as Girolamo Cardona, John Dee, and Nostradamus casting horoscopes respectively for King Edward VI and Queen Elizabeth I of England, and Catherine de' Medici, Queen of France. Astronomers such as Tycho Brahe and Giordano Bruno, as well as Kepler and Galileo, practiced as court astrologers. The line between astrology and astronomy was often unclear, as astronomy was often used to improve astrology. Astrology declined in popularity during the Enlightenment, though it saw a resurgence starting with the rise of spiritualism in the 19th century. It has been embraced by the New Age movement and by newspapers printing daily horoscopes. The archetypes of astrology appealed to psychiatrist Carl Jung and have influenced the development of psychological astrology. While widely regarded by the scientific community today as a pseudoscience, astrology remains extremely popular.
Do you read your horoscopes?
No,
Yeah, I don't either. Do you? What sign are you? Hey, Eileen, what's
I
your sign?
I am Aquarius.
Okay, I'm a Leo. I have no idea whether or not we're supposed to like get along.
I don't know.
It's it. I've had I've had people tell me that I'm very Leo like, and I know like the general descriptors, and I was like, okay, I don't. But it's that I do. Am I the way I am because I was born under this sign, or just who I am? I don't know.
To be honest, I find that some of it is so vague that you can assign almost anything to anybody.
Which seems to be the point of this episode.
That is true.
All right, let's jump into our cast highlights. Harry Haddon Patton played charmless Lawrence Jansen. Now, Haddon Patton studied at Eton and trained at the London Academy of Music and Dramatic Art, otherwise known as LAMDA. He is best known for playing Bertie Pelham, the Marquess of Hexham, suitor of Lady Edith Crawley in Downton Abbey. He must have come on after I stopped watching that show.
Yeah.
And Martin Charteris in The Crown. Now, he's also appeared in About Time, La Vie en Rose, and Twisters, and was nominated for a Tony for his role in the 2018 revival of My Fair Lady. Fun fact, his wife, Rebecca Knight, appeared in the Midsummer Murders episode A Grain of Truth. And another fun fact, he is the godson to Sarah Ferguson, the Duchess of York. Now, apparently, yeah,
Randy Andy's ex-wife, yeah.
yep. Now, apparently, she became his godmother before she married.
Mm.
So, Kenny Ireland played drunken disc target George Dormer. Ironically, Ireland is from Scotland and actually spent 10 years as the director at the Royal Lyceum Theatre in Edinburgh. He's appeared in Taggart, Local Hero, and House of Cards, but is best known for his role as swinger Donald Stewart in the show Benidorm. Now, he appeared on that show from its very beginnings in 2007 all the way until 2014, when unfortunately he was diagnosed with brain cancer and passed away soon after. Soraya Radford was intrepid astronomy student Gagandutta. She's appeared in The Bible, Emmerdale Farm, The Infidel, and Doctors. Now, it looks like she is mostly retired from acting and seems to have, according to her LinkedIn anyways, moved into the wellness area. Jay Taylor played protective plumber Peter Groves. He is a Rotograd. He's appeared in the cult film Donkey Punch, as well as A Fantastic Fear of Everything and Broken Bird. Tim Wallers played a thin-headed Jeremy Harper. Thin-headed because he gets cracked in the head like a coconut. He appeared in the shows. He's appeared in the shows Night and Day, Prime Suspect, Yes Prime Minister, and The Windsors. There was a lot of interesting actors in this who there's just not a lot of information
Hmm.
or weird facts about them.
Yeah. I think, yeah, acting was, top notch as always. Yeah.
Yep. Claire Calbraith was cheating wife Katrina Harper. Now she's appeared in Vera, Grace, Home Fires, and Mr. Bates versus the Post Office, as well as a few episodes of Downton Abbey. Kelly Price played reporter Tanya Walker. Now, she's appeared in a bunch of amateurs, Hollyoaks, A Sense of an Ending, and The English Game. She was an Olivier nominee for her role in the 2009 revival of A Little Night Music. Charles Daish had one scene as obnoxious editor Jack Clow. Now, Daish has appeared in Hamlet, Cold Feet, Mile High, and The Bill. But fun fact, so he had a very large role, it looks like, in the international touring company of Mamma Mia, which probably earned him a role in the ensemble for Mamma Mia, Here We Go Again, the film.
Our return visitors, we have a couple. Ace Batty played obsessive father Harry Dutta. We talked about him when we did Dress to Kill. His full name is Ashen Bhatti, but because of mispronunciations and jokes made with his name, he started using his childhood nickname Ace. He's been in Bohemian Rhapsody, Line of Duty, The Sarah Jane Chronicles, and most recently in Protection.
So I loved him in Line of Duty, and so when I was looking what he's been up to lately, I found an
Hmm.
article that says like apparently so when he was in Line of Duty and that show was so popular, strangers would approach him on the street and offer him money if they could reveal who the super big bad H was.
Barnaby K was amorous Professor Adrian Sharp. We will see him again in Bantling Boy. He is in Shakespeare in Love, Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning Part 1, The Five, and Screw. We had a number of uncredited actors helping flesh out the world, so thank you to Richard Herdman, Fabio Volano, Paul Blackwell, John Duggan, Nick Thomas Webster, Chris Cowlin, Anthony Farrell, Susan Fordham, Sean Lucas, and Jacqueline Watson McKee. And our mayor of Midsummer, Chris Wilson, played an uncredited police officer in this episode. Our village star is Maureen Lipman, who played aggressive astrologer Mags Dormer. She's actually Dame Maureen Diane Lipman, but did not receive the honor until 2020. She's a Lambda grad who has performed with the National Theatre and the RSC. She's been nominated for 7 Olivier Awards, winning in 1984 for her role in See How They Run. She was nominated for a BAFTA for her role in the film Educating Rita. She's appeared in Agony, The Pianist, and Solomon and Gaynor, where she spoke Yiddish for the whole film. She was married to screenwriter Jack Rosenthal and finished his autobiography after his passing. She also wrote a column for Good Housekeeping for 10 years, probably not on astrology. In August 2024, she became engaged to David Turner, the co founder of LA Fitness. I've recognized her from several things, and yeah, especially Educating Rita, where she was the posh roommate for Julie Walters.
Yeah, she's a very well-known actress in the UK. I'll be honest, again, she kind of won by default by just having the biggest career out of anyone in this episode.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I I don't. I think she was kind of she didn't get to do like there's one scene where I thought she gets to do like some really nice work, but again, a lot of her stuff with this, a lot of her work just kind of is not good in this episode, and it's not her fault. It's just the episode didn't need a lot of this astrology stuff.
Yeah, she played the character very well. It just, they focused on the astrology too much and not enough on
Mhm.
her character.
Yeah,
So she was always talking about star charts and this and that, and it's like there's an emotional connection with these other people that we need to be talking about.
yeah. Like I liked. There was a really good scene where after George is killed and she is
Hmm.
slightly grieving, and I thought it was a
Hmm.
really interesting choice to like she grieves for like 2 minutes and then she's just trying to sell Jones that star chart.
Yeah,
Like you can't like that's a true salesperson. You know, you just there's no opportunity. You leave no opportunity on the floor.
yeah. And her confession scene where she works through kind of, and you can tell she's been doing this for 15 years. She's been justifying everything that they did. Yeah.
Yeah.
So she does
All
a
right.
great job with what she has.
Yes. All right, we're going to take a quick break here, and we'll be back with the second half of Written in the Stars.
And from the warrior into the triangle, and reach for the sky, and back into the warrior. Yes. And hold on the outward breath, and relax.
And we're back. Let's talk about the second half of Written in the Stars.
Mysteries of the Cosmos and Astrological Guide. You're not beginning to believe, are you, Jones? It's just background. I've always been interested in planets, constellations, heavenly bodies. For instance, did you know Uranus is 14 times bigger than the Earth?
At the murder scene, the detectives discover Peter was killed with the stolen spear, and the telltale red fibers mean it's the same killer. Peter's body has also been positioned in an almost S shape, with the bloody spear laid at his head. Mags tells Tanya the news, and they conspire to keep the horoscope story going by saying she also predicted Peter's death, and then they decide to predict trouble for the observatory. Barnaby and Jones go to talk to Mags, but George pulls Barnaby aside to tell him about the fight between Harry and Peter, as well as his talk with Katrina. When Barnaby talks to Harry, he says he was alone contemplating when Peter was killed. Tanya is surprised by Lawrence, who continues to threaten her. That night, George hears someone in the backyard, and when he investigates, the moon-faced killer throws the moonstone disc straight into his throat, killing him. The detectives discover the edge of the disc had been sharpened to the point that it severed his carotid artery, which triggered a heart attack. Mags found the body, and she says she was working and didn't hear a thing when George was murdered. She says George, who used to be a boozer, had gone back to drinking heavily after Jeremy's death. Later, Barnaby finds Goggins sitting in her car on Moonstone Ridge. She tells him that she thinks it's Lawrence killing the Astronomy Society. The four of them had been working on a project, the discovery of a new planet. They were just waiting for final confirmation the following day before going public. She said no one else knew, but if Lawrence found out, he would have been enraged that amateurs had found a planet and he didn't. When she goes home, Harry confronts Goggin about the condoms and demands to know if she was sleeping with Peter, but she says that Peter was gay. She ends up storming out for a tutorial with Adrian at his home, and Harry follows and watches her kiss Adrian. Barnaby realizes that the killer not only sharpened the disc, they also polished it up to reveal stars in the shape of the constellation Scorpio. Peter's body had been placed in the same way as the constellation, which makes Barnaby think that this is the signature of a serial killer with the birth sign of Scorpio. And hey, both Lawrence and Mags are Scorpios, so they talk to her first. She says she didn't know about the planet and that her marriage to George was not great. Barnaby tells her to come clean about Mary's death. Jones learns that Lawrence won a decathlon, and since the three murders were similar to decathlon events, they go and interrogate him, but Lawrence was apparently in a meeting during George's murder, so he has an alibi. Gagan drives to Moonstone Ridge to talk to her mom's spirit, but after she walks around and gets back into her car, she finds a scorpion on her lap and Moon Mask outside the car. After she discovered to be missing, Harry tells them about her kiss with Adrian. Adrian tries to just play it off as a crush and that she kissed him, and he hasn't heard from her since she left at 4 p.m. Mags comes to Coston headquarters to confess about Mary. So apparently at the party 15 years ago, they all had a lot to drink, and Mags and Mary got into a fight over astrology and astronomy that turned physical, as it always does. And then Mary fell down the stairs and died. Everyone agreed to cover it up, and George took the body to the ridge. But she knows nothing about what is going on now. Jones says Guggen's last call was to Adrian at 4:45, and Barnaby realizes Adrian has been lying and leading them to look into Lawrence. Meanwhile, Adrian is holding Guggen at the Astrodome, and here we get the reveal. So Adrian had apparently hacked Guggen's computer and knew about the planet. He has been killing the Astronomy Society so he could take credit for the discovery and plan the murders to look like a serial killer to frame Lawrence, who, let's face it, is probably one. Now, he gave Guggen the alibi not to protect her, but to protect himself, and has left her alive so she can show him which star to look at to prove if it is indeed a planet. And she was right. It is. It is a planet. But that's not great news for her because now Adrian doesn't need her alive. However, Barnaby and Jones have traced Adrian to the Astrodome and arrive just in time to stop him strangling her. He escapes and runs for his car, but Jones catches up to him because the car won't start thanks to Barnaby ripping something out of the engine. In the end, Goggin returns to the hands of her overpossessive father, great, and Jones goes to Kate Wilding's birthday party looking to score.
Yeah.
So we have strange kill number 2, which is the disc. So George is hit in the throat with a razor sharp disc that cuts the carotid artery, which also caused a heart attack. And my first thought was, why did they need to add the heart attack? He would have just bled to death.
Yeah, they kind of skimped on the blood, I guess. I don't know.
Yep. So he also asked if someone was there, and I got to feel at this point, people in Midsummer really, there needs to be like PSAs.
Mm,
The more you know. Hey, don't ask if someone's there ever.
yeah, yeah.
Uh,
It's like they don't watch the show.
now, this murder is implausible.
even more, even more implausible than the spear. I mean, seriously.
I mean, it would require Adrian to be able to throw the disc with incredible accuracy to hit the throat
hmm
with enough speed for it to hit to like just rip into the throat.
Yeah,
And I'm sorry, there's no way.
yeah.
It just seems to be like they say, well, we got one like it was like, okay, so we hit him with a rock, we're gonna throw a
hmm
spear, and let's just go crazy and shoot a razor sharp disc at someone's neck.
These are not well planned out or murders on the parts of the writers, in my opinion.
Yeah, and it goes into like Adrian is the killer, and in no way do we understand that Adrian is physically able to do the two weird murders.
Yeah, because he's not shown in doing any sort of athletic thing.
They make a like the detectives make a point that like Lawrence won a decathlon, and three of these like shot put, discus throwing, and javelin are all similar to the murders. And I'm like, okay, number one, he didn't throw the meteorite at the guy's head; he just hit him with it.
Yeah,
Javelin doesn't require you to hit a narrow target on someone's chest. You throw it to see how far you can get it.
yeah.
And that's not how you do the disc at all.
Basically, any of these uh, throwing events that are part of track and field are distance. They are not accuracy. You want accuracy, you go to archery and the shooting stuff.
I mean, this is again like trained, like you are trained assassin level. Like this is the
hmm
stuff that you watch in old Japanese movies where ninjas pull out the throwing stars and like and like can throw them with such delicate accuracy that you're impaled. And it's like
Yeah,
that's not here, and
yeah,
it's so ridiculous.
yeah. I would have been. It would have been more believable if he'd used like a lawn dart or something.
So Adrian's motive is trying to further his career, using Gagan, I guess, to steal her data,
Yeah.
because he hates Lawrence. So he isn't all bad. Um, but Lawrence apparently was his student, who then his book on the uncertainty principle catapulted him to this success that he became. He became Adrian's boss.
Yeah. Now I had to. I thought they were the same age through
hmm
most of this, and I had to look up that the actor who played Adrian was older than the one who played Lawrence, and he is indeed 12 years older. So he could have been his student, but it's not mentioned until the very end that he was his student.
Yep,
None of the clues happen until the very end.
exactly. Although you got like I got a sense he was creepy the moment he like there's a moment before we know he's fully engaged in an affair with Gagan when he
hmm
strokes her face.
Oh yeah.
I was like, ew.
I mean, other than having a totally inappropriate relationship with his student, there's nothing to indicate that he's a murderer, though. The yeah, I mean, he called like he lied about, but we don't know that he lied about the alibi. She just thanks him.
It's very clear that it's very she thinks it's very clear that he was lying for her. He was covering for her.
Yeah, I mean it yeah, you know
And
that
the
it doesn't say, oh, thank you, I was like off doing this, but yeah, it's yeah, but and then you get that he lied about the phone call at the end, which is like, well, yeah,
which is stupid. Why would
yeah,
you lie about that?
yeah,
He's smart enough to know that they're going to look at her phone. So why
yeah,
don't you just say she told me she was going to go meet with Lawrence to
yeah.
talk about her thesis. It was like another way to like throw
Yeah,
Lawrence
so
under the bus.
I saw her at this time, and then we talked on the phone, yeah, half an hour, 45 minutes later or something, It just, yeah, it's like badly done.
It just feels like when they were working on this, they realized they were editing to like they had the 10 minutes left in their time. And they're like, oh crap, we got to wrap this up. Just wrap this up. Just make up something.
Yeah. And this is where spending so much time on the astrology and trying to get Jones's star chart done and all that stuff felt like a waste of time because it's like, and this is a short episode. It's like they didn't develop the murder.
No, they. I also thought that the scene where he is choking and trying to strangle Gagan
Hmm.
was very graphic for this show.
Yeah.
Like it in a way that you don't really see, because they're strangling is a very intimate and brutal kind of
Hmm.
murder,
Yeah.
and to like we see it in kind of close up with like, and just it's not something you normally see in Midsummer, right?
No. Yeah.
Um, and it kind of went, I went, oh whoa.
Yeah. There's a scene in Hitchcock's Strangers on a Train where the the murderer is explaining about strangling and how personal it is, and it had that kind of feel to it. Yeah.
Yeah, he also does it in Frenzy.
Yeah.
He liked choking people.
He did like choking
Like
people.
choking.
He was a little
Oh, I got to watch. Oh, well, I mean, like
kinky.
it's funny. I was watching Shadow of a Doubt last night, and
Hmm.
Joseph Cotton's murderer is a strangler.
Yeah. Yeah.
Also, with Hitchcock, strangling is also sexual.
Oh yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
I think it is with a lot of like Boston Strangler and stuff like that.
Yep.
There's a sexual element to it.
Yep.
Yeah.
All right, that's it for strangling with Eric and Eileen. Let's get back to Midsummer. So Gaga and her father, I hated this relationship so much.
Hmm.
He is overbearingly possessive and overprotective of her as she is a grown woman,
Hmm.
to the point where at the end where she's like running into his arms, I was like,
Hmm.
oh,
Yeah.
not I was not happy in the end that she goes back with he was gonna be like, I told you.
Yeah. It was kind of it. There are a lot of creepy relationships in this one, and that one was way up there on the creep factor.
This episode ranks high on the ick.
Yeah.
Um, you know, his excuse is that because of his wife's death,
Hmm.
uh, which he believed to be a murder, he needed to protect her, especially from the same people. But also, he just didn't seem to see her as an adult at all.
Yeah.
He said her name means Lamb of the Heavens,
Lamp of the heavens.
Lamp of the Heavens.
Yeah, because he says the light of his life. Yeah, lamp.
Oh,
Yeah.
it said I heard lamb. I don't know.
This is why you go back with the closed captioning on.
Yeah. But I did Google, and that's her name is sort of like heavenly light. So
Yeah.
uh, someone did the research.
Yeah.
I wouldn't surprise me if like either one of the actors is like, hey, this means that. And it's like, oh, that's perfect. Da, da,
Yeah.
he's also the town yoga teacher, and Sarah's at his class.
He's this yoga teacher until we get to season 21 where we have a different yoga teacher in the Sting of Death.
Who's also creepy
And
and weird.
yeah, and Sarah also took his classes.
Yep.
So at least Sarah's consistent in her yoga.
Yes, and fighting creepy yoga teachers.
Yeah.
Um, I did think that like when he's like, "We're going to do the corpse pose," and I'm like, "That's so on the nose."
This is Midsummer, man. We're always doing the corpse
Yeah,
pose.
that's
That is our pose.
that is. We are taught that at birth. That's what you do when you meet a creepy stranger. Just lie down and pretend you're dead.
Yeah.
You don't get murdered. You just
No.
They think you're already dead.
Yeah, I found it weird with Mary's death being 15 years ago, which would have been during the Tom Barnaby and George Bullock era. They seem to go out of their way not to mention either one of them to the point where they get interrupted by like a phone call and stuff like that. It's weird that they will not mention their predecessors.
They never do though.
I
And
know. It's weird.
so this is like one of Dudgeon's earliest episodes, right?
Yeah.
So my guess is if you mention Barnaby or Bullock, then you have to deal already with those people who are like, well, he's not as good as Nettles.
Oh, that's still going on. Yeah.
It's still going on, but you don't want to feed that beast either, right? They've never
That is
mentioned him.
true. Yeah.
You know,
But they could have mentioned Bullock, as the previous coroner aboard George Bullock.
considering how he left the show, I don't think so.
That may be, or maybe he was on vacation and somebody else was was doing it. So
No.
yeah.
So then we have Mags and George, whose marriage is clearly not great. Mostly because he hangs out in the shed or at the Astrodome, and Mags just wants to have more sex.
Yeah.
She wants to do it in the dark.
She might even want to do it in the light. Who knows?
Yep. So we see her at the paper where she is working as an astrologer. And for the
Hmm.
life of me, I do not believe that the horoscope writer for that paper would A, have her own desk,
Yeah.
or would have a desk with that many files on it.
Yeah. That would be something that they would contract out to somebody, it seems like, or run.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, usually in American papers, they had like national syndicated horoscopes.
Yes.
Yeah.
But there is a stack of files on that desk that is at least 10 inches high.
Yeah.
I was like, no. Why would she have that many files?
Yes. How do we dress a newsroom? Let's stack files on the desk.
The paper clearly wants to lean more into a tabloidy
Hmm.
Sun sort of Daily Mirror sort of direction.
Yeah.
So the editor wants her to make sexier horoscopes.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I could just imagine like every horoscope's, you're gonna have sex tonight.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. The next day it was like, there's a tall, dark stranger in your future.
Yep.
There'll be a fair haired man who will want to have sex with you.
But we see it later when Sarah's looking at her horoscope in the paper, and it is a
Yeah.
sexier horoscope.
It is a sexier horoscope. Yep.
I love it when George just tells Barnaby his wife's a charlatan, but hey, it pays the rent. Talk about not respecting your wife's job, George.
Yeah. Yeah. I did kind of like that. Yeah.
Yeah, but he also described in a scene with Peter and Gagan, he describes the murder as, stuff happens.
Yeah. It is midsummer. I mean, this is a common event.
I mean, how many people do you think on average in Midsummer do you know? Got like everybody in Midsummer knows somebody that got murdered.
Yeah. I mean, George, he's probably, known several people. He's like,
Yeah.
I had a cousin in Badger's Drift who was murdered,
And in fairness, I've met two people that I've known two people that were murdered, but I spent 4 years in Florida. Mags says the name of this episode several times,
Yeah. Yeah.
which just bugged the hell out of me.
Yeah. It's like Jones saying rare birds a lot in that episode. Yeah.
Yeah. Also, so Mags works with Tanya at the paper. And there was just a couple of weird Tanya moments. So when they're at the locker room at the yoga studio,
Mm-hmm.
and everyone is just spilling secrets in front of Tanya, and I'm like, she's a reporter, right?
Yeah.
Like,
So weird.
did anyone bother to say off the record?
Yeah. Though I wonder if Guggen was doing it on purpose.
Maybe,
Yeah.
but also when she had Lawrence over to her house, she was drinking.
Oh yeah. They both had wine glasses. Yeah.
That's how you normally do interviews when you're a journalist. You get your subjects drunk. Speaking of Lawrence, his affair with Katrina.
Mm-hmm.
Why is she having an affair with him?
I don't know. We don't know enough about Jeremy to know if he was a good husband or not.
Well, she says that Jeremy wanted like a mousy housewife who didn't work, which
Yeah.
seems like, but then it seems like that's a stretch to say that she go from that to Lawrence, who is a charmless jerk with a huge forehead.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, actor. The way they styled your hair in this episode, your forehead's huge. So I just chalked it up to Katrina has the worst taste in men.
There are women who do have terrible taste in men.
Yes, and she apparently is one of them.
Yeah.
You also would think that his fancy sports car would mean he should be able to afford decent running clothes.
That was one Red's fancy sports car. And yeah, the running clothes were kind of weird. And the way he ran in that one scene
Yeah,
was not running. It was
it was
not
a
jogging. Yeah.
slow. It was a slow jaunt.
Yeah.
I run and I see a lot of runners, and I see a lot of runners in all kinds of weather, and I never seen anyone wear that ever.
Yeah.
Ever. Not, and I live in a neighborhood where there's people with money, and Lawrence would seem to have money.
Yeah.
It's probably running an old Converse high tops.
Yeah.
Katrina goes to Harry to talk to him and just outright reject him
Yeah.
again. And then it's some interesting dialogue between Harry and her as he tries to, I guess, yogi her.
Yeah.
That she is caught in her lies. Her mind is muddled and she needs to think straight.
Yeah. Platitudes. Yeah.
A man can kill for love.
Mm.
Um, and that the fate is not in the stars, but in the choices we make.
Yeah. Yeah, that to me stuck out because it reminded me of the line from Julius Caesar that Cassius says to Brutus, "The fault, dear Brutus, is not in our stars, but in ourselves that we are underlings," which is basically astrology is bunk.
Yeah. Yeah. And then we had a scene where the detectives are talking to Lawrence. He's being a jerk, and she's listening in. I didn't know what the point of that scene, like the point of
Hmm.
seeing her do that was. We didn't. Basically, that's the last we kind of see of them at all.
Yeah,
There's no confrontation. There's no, you know what, you're kind. I don't want to be with you anymore. Any of that.
yeah,
Um, I just didn't see the point of that.
yeah.
All right, so you did a little digging into all the science.
Well, yeah, actually, I found this blog called Cosmic Horizons, written by an Australian astrophysicist. He doesn't give his name, but I am trusting that he is an Australian astrophysicist.
His name is
Um,
Cosmic Horizons.
his name is Cosmic Horizons, Cosmo Horizons.
There you go.
And yeah, he pointed out a few things that I thought were kind of interesting. First of all, astronomers do not hang out in the observatory domes all the time, as they do in a lot of TV shows that are dealing with astronomies. They certainly wouldn't be defending their thesis in one and doing like all this math in one, like she was doing. Um, while they're at an observatory, they would be in the control room because everything is controlled by computers these
Mhm.
days. And apparently, the domes are usually really cold. They have to keep those rooms very cold to keep the telescopes in good working order.
Okay.
Now, the math on Guggen's board is mostly legit, he says. I wouldn't know. But she misspells the physicist Max Planck's last name, and there's a mistake in writing Planck's constant. So that really annoyed him. He said, "Did they not think an astrophysicist would watch this episode?"
I think his mistake is thinking, did they care? I mean, here's the thing. It's like they got a lot of the science wrong, as opposed to when they get a lot of the detective stuff, you know?
Yeah,
Right?
yeah. Now I did see, I think it was on IMDb that somebody said that there'd been a critique of George saying that he was watching the transit of Venus, which the transit of Venus is when Venus crosses the sun from the vantage point of the Earth, which obviously cannot be done at night because you cannot see the sun at night. Now, according to one commenter on the blog, some scientists were observing the June 2012 transit during the night so they could measure any dimming effect it would have on the moonlight that would, from the sun on the moon. I would imagine that those instruments would have to be much more sophisticated than they were in that little astrodome, probably even more than at the observatory, because it's a small planet and it would have, any dimming would have been minuscule.
Yeah.
Now, transits of Venus are visible on Earth, but they're very rare, and you should never look directly at the sun. I just want to put that out there to certain
Hmm.
people.
Oh, you think he listens?
He ain't no fan of ours.
So there is a line in this episode where I think they're having fun with each other. Joan, I think is it Jones or is it? I can't remember again. Jones or Barnaby?
Jones says it, yeah.
Did you know Uranus is bigger than the Earth?
Now, the diameter of Uranus is, or Uranus, if you don't want to be, funny, is only
Uranus.
four is only 4 times that of the Earth, but it's the mass that is 14 times that of Earth. So he
So
says,
it's
so
not that big, but it's chunky.
yeah, it's chunky.
Got Uranus has got that junk in the trunk.
Yeah. Yeah. Now the constellation, when they're talking about the constellation, the constellation is called Scorpius. The astrological sign is called Scorpio. There's a difference there. Most of the other constellations and astrological signs share the same name. But the other thing that bothered me was actually a little bit of museum curatorship. Was they would have had that disc professionally cleaned and restored before they had it on display, unless they had absolutely zero money. But that would have been a pretty significant find.
It would have been a big fine, but yeah, they didn't have any money. They lived in the museum and the tea shop.
Yeah. So
Also, I apparently he cleaned it. Well, I guess with his buffer
I
at
don't
his
know. Yeah.
shed. Corner, corner. We this is going to jump into the detective work because we have to talk about this stuff with Jones. But so it's Kate Wilding's birthday weekend coming up,
Hmm.
and it's very clear that it's going to be a late rager, and it's very clear that Jones is going to try to have sex with her.
Yep. Only encouraged by Mags.
Yep. Which this is for me the huge sticking point in this episode. The scenes with Jones and Mags are terrible.
Hmm.
They stop the show dead every time. Like it's literally we're moving forward and we got another 2 minute scene where she's trying to sell him on a star chart.
Yeah.
She basically did his chart because she knew his grand, so she did it for some reason, right? Like she would
Yeah.
why would she have just done this?
Yeah.
He keeps resisting for a very long time, and then she manages to talk him into it because she says her chart hints at him having an affair with someone at work, and that the number 11 is important in his future, and that K is the 11th number. So we're all led to believe that this star chart is hinting that he is going to have an affair with Kate.
Yeah. Yeah.
And my problem with this is we've already seen in this episode early on that her horse that she makes stuff up, that she is a bad
Yeah.
astrologer. She is making stuff up. So why are we spending so much time seeing someone who is like trying to sell a star chart that's quite possibly just made up, and like it's just so much of the episode.
Well, we do know that the unexamined life is not worth living, which is a quote from Socrates, attributed to Socrates, which he's supposed to have uttered during his trial. But she's examining everybody's life through their stars and not through, what they actually do.
It seemed such a waste, especially when they
Yeah.
had no real clues in this murder investigation and they were
Yeah.
so far off the track.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, I don't understand why they felt it felt like they realized they had a great actress cast in
Yeah.
this role, so they wanted to give her a little bit of something to do,
Yeah.
but this was not that interesting.
Yeah. They needed to spend more time with between Adrian and Lawrence, because that was actually the key relationship
Yeah.
here. And we get none of it. We get Adrian is like, oh yeah, okay. He comes across as very, mild mannered. And then all of a sudden he's the killer,
Mhm.
which is, one of those things that's like, oh, we have to pick the least likely person to have done it. And Midsummer does that sometimes, but oh, they can't get away with it. They just did not get away with it in this one because they didn't give us any clues. There was
They
nothing.
did show us he was good with children
Yeah, yeah, yeah. um,
in all
but,
sorts of ways.
yeah, but there's no tension between his in his scenes between him and Lawrence.
No. He doesn't even play like we are supposed to suspect him. It
Hmm.
And the detectives are literally just led down the garden path by Adrian until they get the one thing.
Hmm.
And then as soon as we know that, as soon as he says that, like, oh, she kissed me, and we saw that, so we know that's not true.
Yeah,
So it's just like, oh, it's this guy.
yeah.
Barnaby is obsessed with trying to find this serial killer's signature,
Hmm.
which, again, this does kind of lean into sort of like he wants it to be a serial killer.
Hmm.
So he's looking at every clue like it's a serial killer.
And that was when they were trying to lean into the psychology degree that he had and
Yep.
stuff more. And it really forced it. Even in that way, the murders don't make sense because the first seems opportunistic, but that we don't know. We don't really understand why and how.
Well, we don't see it happen. We don't see it happen. The other two, we see a character in the moon mask, which is, it looks like
Hmm.
a black and white cookie.
Yeah,
Also, why is he in the moon mask?
he's out at night.
He's out at night. Who's seeing him? There's no
Yeah.
cameras. Like, like, who cares? Who
Yeah,
cares if they see? Like, was it getting into character?
yeah. And then when she sees him in the moon mask, how would she know that's? I mean, it's creepy because she's got a scorpion on her lap, but it's like she's supposed to know he's the killer because she sees this moon mask person when nobody has seen this moon mask person.
Yeah. Also, we're like they do it for us. They did it for
Yeah,
us, and it was like,
yeah,
okay, but it makes no sense. It makes no sense strategically in the story.
yeah. Very little makes sense strategically in the story.
Yes. I love it when Barnaby snapped at Jones and said, "Be quiet. I'm trying to visualize."
Meanwhile, Jones is actually pulling up clues,
Yep.
I mean, because the decathlon thing, even though it's a red herring, is legitimate thing to kind of. I mean, who else would you think? Well, maybe we should look at people who can throw spears and disc with incredible accuracy. Are there any ninjas in the area? Maybe they should have looked for ninjas.
Maybe they should have, because again, decathlon, it's not about accuracy, it's about distance.
Yeah, I know.
They should have looked at darts champions, for God's sakes. We have
Yeah.
Barnaby goes on to Google. I mean, Big Browser
Hmm.
is the web name of the website he goes on to look up faraway planets.
Yeah.
Also, they mentioned the Goldilocks zone, which
Hmm.
is one of the science things they get right,
Yeah.
because that is a real thing.
Yeah.
That is the scientific idea that a planet where life can exist has to basically have not too hot, not too cold. It has to be just right on so many variables.
Hmm.
Therefore, the Goldilocks zone.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then, as we mentioned, there's a lot of terrible moon puns, moon jokes in this
Yeah.
astrology. That just clunker after clunker after clunker.
And poor Jason Hughes had to do this. And I did read that this was his 50th Midsummer episode, which is why they kind of give him a lot in this, but they give him really bad dialogue
Yeah. Um.
and a really bad shirt jack combo.
Oh God, he did not pull that off.
I don't think anybody could have pulled that off.
Two people pull that off. Their names are Don Johnson and Philip Michael Thomas.
Yeah, but even then, the t-shirts weren't that weird V-necky thing.
It was
Yeah.
not even a deep V. It was a mid V.
Yeah.
It was baggy. It
Yeah.
didn't form fit.
Yeah.
He was supposed to be dressed to kill.
Yeah. Yeah. Not gonna. Yeah.
And this is Midsummer, and I would think dressed to kill has a different meaning altogether. He should have been in a hoodie with
Yeah.
gloves.
With gloves and a moon mask.
Oh God. The one line I thought was kind of interesting was at the very beginning when we see them watching the eclipse at the station,
Hmm.
staring directly into it with their funny glasses.
Yeah. Which you do have to wear. Do
Yep.
not look at the sun
Yep.
directly without
And
those glasses.
Jones calls out and said, "How cool is this?" And Barnaby goes, "Ominously strange."
Yeah. It is very weird because I don't. Have you seen a total eclipse?
Yes. I looked directly into it. I don't know what you're talking about.
Well, you can take your glasses off during the eclipse. You have
Yeah.
to be very careful about it. And I had a little timer on my phone that we were following. I went to a in the 2024 eclipse. I went to a party out at a farm for my friend, and because we managed to like have absolutely amazing weather and it was
Yeah.
clear, we lucked out on that. And it's weird because suddenly the birds all start nesting. So there's no bird song. They stop singing because they think the sun is going down. They don't understand. They're like, prehistoric people. It's like, okay, time to go to bed, or the dragon is eating the sun.
Yep.
Who knows?
So let's talk a little bit about the home life. Again, we mentioned Sarah's doing yoga. That's basically all she does in this episode.
Mm-hmm.
Between that and trying to help John do yoga and meditate,
Yeah.
because she wants him to de-stress. She is shocked when he says he will actually try it, but not right now.
Yeah.
He does the corpse pose and immediately falls asleep after I believe she massages his chest.
Yeah. That was a very intimate yoga session, meditation section, because I think you're supposed to like not have any outside stimuli, and she was doing some very stimulating there.
Maybe she knows that if she plays with his chest, he goes to sleep. He declares he won't wear a leotard, and for that, I say thank you.
Yeah.
And then when he tries to meditate, it makes him horny.
I did like that uh John and Sarah got interrupted by a phone call from Ben just before they get all lovey-dovey there. Just as in what the previous season, Ben was interrupted while in bed by a phone call from Barnaby in the episode Rare Bird. So payback. Payback.
All right, final thoughts on Written in the Stars. I think it's pretty apparent how we felt about this episode.
This is one because I love the subject of astronomy. I love a good eclipse. I love, it just, I wanted so much to love it. And I think they just flubbed it so badly.
It starts strong.
It starts strong.
strong, and then like, as soon as they start focusing more on Mags and Jones, it slowly starts going off the rails.
Yeah.
They stop spending time on the like developing clues. They spend way more time on that. They in a world of Midsummer where they have a lot of implausible murders.
Yeah.
This one just like these got really weird, implausible with no real explanation. It just felt like they had a good idea, and then as they wrote it, they just kind of wrote themselves in these holes
Yeah.
and didn't dig themselves out.
Yeah, even at the very beginning, if Jeremy had been killed behind the crowd of people who had been watching the sun instead of in front of everybody, that would have been, made more sense. If they had developed more of Adrian, at one point he says, we all return to Stardust, and it kind of calls back to Carl Sagan's "We Are All Made of Stardust," which he says in a
Yeah.
very optimistic way, and he turns it and makes it very kind of dark. And if they had leaned into more of that darkness with Adrian, and it would have made more sense.
Well, everything is it's a stereotype. It's not a
Yeah,
fully fleshed out character. Lawrence
yeah,
is a cheating jerk.
yeah.
Harry is obsessive father.
hmm
Uh, George.
Goggin is the brilliant scientist. Yeah,
Yes, they don't. There's nothing beyond that.
yeah,
And then Adrian was supposed to be the nice guy professor. So when you
yeah.
find out he's the murderer, it's even
hmm
more of a twist. But it's not a twist because just didn't think much about him at all.
Yeah. The thing is, and with a lot, especially with mysteries, but with a lot of things, the twist has to feel inevitable, even if you can't predict it.
There has
There
to be
has to
clues.
be an of course, or an oh, okay, I see that, or a at least. And there's this like, this is more WTF.
Yeah, it's just there has to be reasons for everything,
Yeah.
and there's not.
There are no clues.
We always like to say overstuffed and underbaked, and this just felt this just this would feel like it's a recipe where they just decided to substitute a lot of things,
Yeah.
and you get like a weird tasting mishmash of goulash, and it's like I don't like this.
Yeah, it's not even because the clues are deliberately set by the murderer to point to somebody else, but there has to be clues to the real murderer.
Yeah, actually, you know what the metaphor for this episode is? It's like when you were a kid and you wanted McDonald's.
Mm-hmm.
And because McDonald's burgers, what they taste like, they're super good every time.
Yeah.
And your mom's like, I'm gonna make you a burger. It's gonna be better than McDonald's.
Mm-hmm.
And then you get it, and it's like, this is not a McDonald's. This does not taste like McDonald's. This has got green peppers in it for some reason. I think I'm ripping off an Eddie Murphy joke at this point, but the metaphor is sound. It's like it looks very similar to good Midsummer Murders episodes, but it's way off the recipe.
Yeah, or it's like generic brand of something you really like and you buy it because it's on sale and it tastes terrible.
Yeah.
But,
So,
it has a nice can. They did a nice design can work on the can.
and I'm sure there's people listening to this who love this episode and it was like, if you love what you love, and we
Yeah.
will always support you loving what you love. For us, this one does not. This is not a. It's not the worst episode. It's just not. I'm okay with. I'm okay. I'm okay if I turn on the TV and the Midsummer channel and this one's on. I'm like, I'll go. I'll go watch something else.
Yeah, it just does not work as a mystery.
That's everything we wanted to talk about. If you had anything you want to discuss about Written in the Stars or Midsummer Murders in general, please feel free to email us at welcometomidsomer@gmail.com. If you want us to use the email in the show, say so in your email. We're also Welcome to Midsummer on Facebook, Instagram, and Threads, as well over on YouTube, where we've been slowly uploading our old episodes. Please follow us in all these places. And if you liked what you heard, please consider subscribing to us or rating and reviewing us on iTunes or Spotify. That really helps people find us. Turn your automatic downloads on. That helps with the algorithm. Please tell all your friends about us because, that's just nice.
Mm.
We'll be back soon with a new episode, and we hope you will join us again. And as we take the road out of Midsummer, we want to thank you all for listening and remind you that in Midsummer, finding a planet can be murder.
And usually is.
Welcome to Midsummer is produced by Eric Buscher and Eileen Becker. All clips in this podcast are used in compliance with the U.S. Copyrights Act fair use exemption for criticism and commentary. Our logo and podcast art was designed by Smeedrai. Our theme music is by the infamous Space. Ta-da!